Sing of moon rays on the rain, sing that love's not in vain. Every grief, every wrong has its ending in song.
Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach all men how to spin clouds of gloom into light. Without silence, what is song? Without night, where is dawn? Were it not for men's woes, who would smile at our rose? Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Let each tone silence grow, earth and heaven unite. Morning laughter, evening tears, snow and blossoms all fade. Joy must sing in the night to face change unafraid. Nightingale, nightingale, nightingale.
Week's service is entitled First Things First. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. That expression, first things first, is a piece of counsel often given to students of business techniques. It is the advice of practicality to those who aspire to worldly success. But according to the Hermetic doctrine, as above, so below, that which works best in one level of life is often the best guide to what will work best on every other level. If a person is true to his higher priorities, he will generally find that his other needs are fulfilled naturally as well. This is true certainly of the search for God. One of the greatest sayings of Jesus Christ was this simple sentence in the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 6. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Paramhansa Yogananda gave his elder brother Ananta a wonderful lesson in this truth. It was Ananta who had captured him and brought him back from his flight to the Himalayas, described by Yogananda in Autobiography of a Yogi. In Yogananda's book, we read how Ananta later challenged him in the city of Agra to pit his divine faith against such practical worldly considerations as the need for earning a living. Fearless before that challenge, the young aspirant agreed to go by train without any money to the nearby town of Brindaban, not to miss a single meal in Brindaban, and to find his way back to Agra without begging and without in any other way asking for help. In one of the most thrilling chapters in the book, Yogananda fulfilled all the conditions of the test. Yogananda continued the account. As the tale was unfolded, my brother turned sober, then solemn. The law of demand and supply reaches into subtler realms than I had supposed. Ananta spoke with a spiritual enthusiasm never before noticeable. I understand for the first time your indifference to the vaults and vulgar accumulations of the world. Late as it was, my brother insisted that he receive Diksha, initiation, into Kriya Yoga. As the Bhagavad Gita puts in the 9th chapter, those who worship lesser gods go to their gods, but those who worship me come to me. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om. Om. Om.
I'd also like to welcome you all. It's a wonderful opportunity to get together and to think about God. Last Sunday, Marie and I took a trip up into the mountains and we went through the town of Quincy, which is a small rural town in the middle of nowhere. And about this time, we noticed that everyone was at church. And it was pretty cool, really. I mean, we think sometimes, because we're spiritual aspirants, that most people don't think of God, and that's not true. Most Americans think of God a lot, but a lot of times they just sort of start with God, and then they forget about God. And that's why Master brought Kriya Yoga to America, was because he wanted there to be the deep mystic teachings reawakened in this country as they were when this country began. I'd like to read a short passage from Whispers from Eternity that Master wrote. This is the demand to see God in everything. O Father, may I behold Thee above, beneath, behind, around, wherever I turn my gaze. Train the children of my senses never to stray from Thee, who dwellest at the heart of everything. Turn my eyes inward to Thy changeless beauty. Attune my ears to silence, that I may hear Thy subtlest music. Breathe on me the heavenly scent of Thy sacred presence. Orient-wise, I will worship Thee, placing the candles of my 5 senses on the altar of my love. Thus I will contact Thee in the first pale shafts of dawn, absorb Thee in the bright light of noon, expand in Thee with the hidden glow of twilight, and merge in Thee in the silver moonlight. Always will I keep alight on my inner altar the mystic taper of my love for Thee. This is the path that Master gave us, was to live in normal, everyday America, as he did, with a mystic awareness that God is the source of everything from start to finish, and that everything comes from God, and everything is made of God, and that we are made of God. And that is the path of Kriya Yoga, is to live in God. It's also the path of all true religions and all true mystic paths. But Master saw that now, since it's Dwapara, progressing rapidly, and that people are much more able to be aware of energy and God's love in a day-to-day fashion, that it was time for this revolution of coming to America, uniting East and West, and starting World Brotherhood colonies. What are we doing here at Ananda? Our point very simply has been from the start to live with the awareness that God is the source. So every morning when we greet the sun, we get up and we say a prayer. And then we chant. And then we meditate. And then we go to work. And then we say a prayer. And then we go to work again. And we work hard. But we work with the thought, if we can, that God is first and last and all the time, as Master put it. That we are here only for God. And if we come with that consciousness, a very interesting mystic transition occurs, where we realize that we're not the ego, we're the point between the eyebrows. We're not the self, separate. We're not separate beings. We're not the body. We're not the race, gender, class, job, description, all that stuff. All that is the Maya, the divisions, the separations. But at the point between the eyebrows is the reality of God first and God all the time. And that's what Ananda was founded on. Is Master knew that it's much easier if you're working with people who can indulge in that consciousness, who can reflect that consciousness. Yesterday we had it's called Harvest Day, but I think only 3 of us were harvesting anything, but that's okay. But it's a beautification day. It's an enriching day. And Peter Gearing asked us to think of the land and think of the blessings. And we were basically painting and prettying up and cleaning the temple and doing this and that. But because we were all in that consciousness, it was so much easier to just feel that God is doing this through us. There was no ego or, hey, who's a supervisor on this job? You know, who's in charge here? God's in charge here. God's always been in charge here. But it was really wonderful, and it was a beautiful example of why World Brotherhood colonies are so helpful. Because if you live in New York City, and maybe some of you do, some of you are from somewhere in an urban environment, think about how much more difficult it is to keep that consciousness of God first and God middle and God end and God all the time. I know I was for years a contractor in the city of San Francisco, and it's difficult. I was trying to think about God. I was trying to chant and be serving and be buildings for my brothers and sisters, and it was very difficult. So it's more, it's easier to live in that God-first consciousness if we have people around us that are reflecting that. So we have the expanding light. So we have Master's Market. So we have Ananda Village. Ananda means joy. Joy Village. We have Crystal Hermitage. We name them. We name our businesses that. We try and see each other as divine beings. And it helps us to realize that we are divine beings. But whether we live in a cooperative community or not, it's our duty to love God and to think about God and to just stretch the amount of time per day that we live in God's consciousness. Master was very adamant about this. He wrote I have to read you a letter from Dr. Lewis, to Dr. Lewis. This is from Paramahansa Yogananda. This is about, what year is it? It's early. Let's say it's 1928. It's about then. Master was in Havana, Cuba, and he was visiting, and he was doing what he does, tried to help people to understand that God is everything. But he wrote to Dr. Lewis. This is the letter he wrote. He talked a little bit about Havana, and then he said, cutting loose from everything, that's what I am doing, that I may consecrate myself to Him, myself entirely. Meditation night and day. A part of it will reach you, meaning Dr. Lewis, and you. Meditate deeper than ever. Meditation is friendship with God. In meditation alone, you hear His voice of peace, His loud talk of infinite assurance. Meditation is the net to catch the divine amphibian. No editing. I'm reading what he wrote. Have more faith. Complain not. Bite more than you can in His name, then chew it. Try more than you can, and then do it. Last of all, remember, now is the time or never. Meditate deeply at night. Throw yourself at the feet of God. Steady coaxing is necessary. Sincere heart call to make Him speak. Forget this dream of life. Lo, in the chamber of imagination, life is already filmed and finished. Don't wait. Pray unceasingly for illumination in God's love. Lose not a minute. Don't be fed up by waiting hopes of this and that. Eat God now. Nourish yourself on eternity. This is the spirit. It has both the import that you've got to do this now, you can't wait, and also that this movie's already filmed and it's over. It's in the can, as they used to say in Hollywood. It's done. Like our movies, they're already finished. Swami's movies are already filmed and millions of people have seen them and it's all over. But God's first and God's now and God's at the end. And that's what we need to remember. So what we try to do is to remind ourselves, and this is the individual job that each of us has, because we're in different stages of life. And some of us are in a position where we can pray at morning meeting and some are not. It's okay, you have to do what you have to do. You have to find a way to put God first. And for each of us, every one of us, the formula is different. We're at different stages in our lives. And you'll notice as your life as a disciple goes on for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, that what reminds you of God can change. Maybe it's a different chant. Maybe it's a different way of looking at it. Because we have to keep making it ever new. Because Maya is very tricky. It tries to lull you to sleep. And so Master's saying, right now, Dr. Lewis, wake up, quickly, quickly. But he said it the next day too, He didn't ever stop saying, it's urgent. We must do this today. Because Maya tries to lull us to sleep. And it tries to lull us to sleep even in our spiritual practices. We try and do our meditation and prayer, but if you say the same prayer every morning, then you sort of fall into a sleepiness. And so you have to keep ever awake. And you can use the same prayer or a different prayer, but you have to find a way that God is with you. That each day you're more cognizant that you are a being of light. That this world is an environment of shadow. And that it is dissipating. And so if you are, whatever your job is, if you're the principal of the school or you're in charge of the water department or you drive a D6 bulldozer or whatever it is, power comes from God. D6 is power, D6 is God. School is where you learn, God is wisdom. That's what's coming through. Whatever you do, you have to realize that God is the source, that the matter, the Maya, is masquerading as reality, and it isn't true. God is beauty, God is light, God is joy, God is love, and you are a child of God. It's in your DNA. You can't be but beauty, you can't be but truth. And so we need to wake up and put God first over and over again. When Master's leaving, 1952, he could have written the same letter, except the divine amphibian. I don't know where that comes from. I never heard him say it before. I never heard him say it after. I've never read it anywhere. It was just the divine speaking through him that day, and we got it in a letter. So we know that if we have a net, we can go out and catch the divine amphibian. Now, I got good news for you, though. Being a former herpetologist student, have Latika. She can manage all this stuff. She'll take care of this. It's not a problem. She'll know what to do. But always God. God in the beginning, God in the middle, God in the end. If we don't have God, then we start to become disconnected from our very center. But our center is always available to us. So we relax. And as Master said, feel that divine friendship for God. Feel that divine assurance. This is the real way to get rid of stress, is divine assurance within. The real way to get rid of sorrow and depression is to meditate on joy. God first really is the answer. Lahiri would always say, he said, solve all your problems by Kriya. But what he meant was use that tool of Kriya to find that you don't have any problems, that you are joy, that you are a being of infinite love, infinite kindness. Remind yourself of that every day. That's why we have the pictures of the masters all the time. Not because they're outside of ourselves, but because they reflect. Master reflects that Prem avatar. Sri Yukteswar reflects jnana, wisdom. Lahiri reflects yoga avatar. You see them. You see Babaji and you realize Babaji's with us. He's here. What am I worried about? Why am I stressed out? Babaji's with me. I don't have a problem. God first, God in the middle, God at the end, God all the time. That's how Master saw it. And that's how we have to see it if we want to realize that we are made of God. We're never separate from God. Don't let this illusion put you out on an island of sorrow and suffering. Master said, get away from my ocean of suffering. He didn't put us here to suffer. He put us here to realize that we are made of light and love. Realize. God bless you all.
Life is a dream, time like a stream, carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere, love can befriend you today. Free from all care like birds of the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth things of great worth, worthy ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh.
Life is a dream, time like a stream, carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere, love can befriend you today. Free from all care, like birds on the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth things of great worth, worldly ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. Love is a star,